I'm Desiree.
And I'm Jordan.
We just bought our dream blue water sailboat called Atticus 2, and we're working hard to transform her from a weekend cruiser into a long-distance offshore voyager.
Last week, I discovered that I'm a total idiot. I got completely soaked in urine while fixing the head, and we took the boat out to practice docking where I, again, felt like a total idiot. So, all in all, pretty good week. Welcome to Sailing Project Atticus. All right, good morning. So it is a beautiful freaking day here in Brantford. It kind of feels like it's actually spring. And today I'm going to be trying to figure out this whole mess here. So we got a lot of lines here, got lines over here. During the sea trial, the reefing lines, they weren't long enough, so we couldn't actually fully raise the main. So I've got to reattach those reefing lines, figure out what's wrong with them. So after raising the main a bit, I had the same problem that we had during the sea trial. Both the clew and tack reefing lines were too short to be led all the way to the cockpit, and so wouldn't let the sail raise all the way. So I removed both of those lines and then reinstalled the lines for the first reef. But there I had the same exact issue and had to remove those lines as well. Now I'm sure there's an explanation for why these lines are shorter and that there was a system in place that worked. But rather than spending time trying to figure it out, I decided to just simply order new reefing lines so that I can have exactly the system that I'd like to have. It makes for a lot more lines in the cockpit, but as long as I can manage that, that would be pretty darn cool to not have to leave the cockpit in order to reef any of the three sails. Okay. Don't know if you can tell, but we went on a shopping spree. Atticus 2 is amazing on multiple levels. The boat's gonna sail really well, the boat is extremely beautiful, and there's a lot more personal space for the two of us. But another thing that's just amazing about this boat is how much storage space it has. So we're kind of approaching provisioning with this boat in a totally different way than we did with Atticus 1.
So for instance, this cabinet has so much space inside of it. I mean, that's more room than we had for all of our fruits and vegetables on Atticus. The problem is that it's just this like big empty space. So eventually I'd like to get some shelves in here. But in the meantime, I bought a bunch of different kinds of storage bins of different shapes and materials just to see what's gonna work in there. Woo-hoo! I measured correctly.
On Atticus 1, I had a lot of tools on that boat, a lot. But I could only put them in small, dinky little boxes and stuff and then kind of stash them all over the place. My big goal with Atticus 2 is to have, hopefully, just one storage area where all my tools are.
It's stressing me out watching it.
Basically, I've got my electrical bag here. This is going to be all the things that move. Any tool that has like a moving part to it. So this one is going to be all my tools that don't move. The ultimate goal will be when I'm doing a project, I'll basically just take all three of these out and sort of create a little workshop somewhere.
Yeah, right over my refrigerator seems like a great idea.
Yeah, you like that? Yes.
Nice.
Look at that. That is amazing. So I think these bags are just the best way for me to, fit as much tool organization into this area as possible. So I know in our boat review series, we talked a lot about how we wanted a bigger boat so that we could raise a family on it, but in reality, I just wanted more beer storage.
This boat has so much storage space, but a lot of it is kind of oddly shaped because of the contour of the hull. But a couple of bins with just the right dimensions made this space much more organized. I found that certain veggies do better in dark, cool storage areas like onions and potatoes. This seems like a good spot, although it probably could use a little bit more ventilation. We'll see. The fridge on this boat is huge, but it's really tricky to access everything. Getting to the bottom of the fridge is like playing a game of yoga Tetris. And on top of that, it is so hard to see what I have down there. I also don't want to just pile in all of our food, so I'm testing out a bunch of different storage bins to figure out what works. Ugh, well, I finally finished my refrigerator. It's still not perfect, but it's gonna be a lot easier to stay organized. One thing that I also got today was a little step stool because I actually can't reach the bottom of the refrigerator unless I stand on it and then like stick my whole head in the refrigerator. It is about 7 o'clock and it is time to pack up, cook some dinner, and watch the sunset.
All right, so next on our to-do list to get the heck out of here, we've got to make sure that our bilge pumps are running well. And so the first thing that we're going to do today is test the manual bilge pump and see if it's working. How's it feel?
I'm not really getting any resistance. Is it doing anything down there?
I don't think so. I bet you those valves aren't closing properly, so let me open it up, see what it looks like.
Oh man, I guess nothing simple on this boat, huh?
I don't think anything's simple ever.
On any boat?
On any boat. Now I was really glad to see that it was pretty easy to disassemble the manual bilge pump in place. Thank God. When I got inside, I saw that there was a bunch of crap in the pump, and some of it was keeping the flapper valves from making a good seal, which prevented the pump from priming. But after I cleaned out the pump and reassembled it, it was still having the same issue. It wouldn't prime. So I thought there might be a lot of crap in the bilge itself that would continue to foul the pump until I cleaned it. Well, oh man, look at that. This is the hose that goes to the manual bilge pump. You can see the, oh man, the strainer just breaks apart. Isn't that nuts?
Oh my gosh.
It's a metal strainer. It's like a Dorito chip.
Good thing you checked.
Yeah, so I'm pretty much just gonna spray the crap out of this bilge and then suck all that crap up into this wet vac. Okay, so we got all kinds of goodies. I mean, any of this stuff could have clogged one of those bilge pumps. But even after cleaning out the bilge, the manual pump would still not prime. So I figured it was time I go on a pilgrimage to what I consider to be the Mecca of marine supply stores. Now, I've been ordering from Defender.com online for years, and they're by far the best online store for marine stuff. But they also have an outlet store that's less than an hour away from where we are in Brantford. Oh, this is so cool being in like the ultimate boat store. I want to be here all day just looking at everything. So in reality, of all of the boat work that I do, a lot of it comes down to rebuilding pumps, whether it be the pump in a toilet, a galley foot pump, the raw water pump for the engine, or bilge pumps. The seals and rubber parts on those mechanisms are items that just wear regularly and they have to be replaced pretty often. And so buying and installing pump rebuild kits is a pretty essential skill for living on a sailboat. Okay, well, getting the exact same problem. And I think that the problem with this manual bilge pump is that there's too much hose running from where it picks up in the bilge all the way to where it discharges. I called Whale and asked them, like, what is the maximum recommended hose length for that whole system? And they said 13 feet total. And this must be closer to 20. So that means that there's probably a lot more suction on the system that's necessary to pull that water all the way up than this unit is really designed for. And then once you get like the tiniest little thing in between the valve and where the valve seals, that little bit of disturbance breaks the seal entirely and then just lets all that water flood back down because there's so much pull on that valve. So because I've already cleaned the bilge, I'm thinking that there's just crap and junk in the hose because it's like 20 feet of hose. So when I opened the pump for like the 4th time, I did see a good amount of crap, so I felt pretty confident that my diagnosis was correct. So I flushed the whole intake line for a long time. And once the hose was cleaned out, I installed the new strainer that I bought, and it was time for the moment of truth. Oh, thank God, it's working. Okay, now I understand one more system a little bit better. So now that the manual bilge pump was working, I wanted to do a little maintenance on the automatic electric bilge pump. First off, I replaced the old broken strainer with a new one. Then I wanted to clean the float switch, which is the device that activates the pump whenever water enters the bilge. The switch was really dirty, which could have potentially caused the switch to fail without us knowing. So I gave it a good cleaning. Finally, the electric bilge pump is ran by a rubber impeller, which needs to be regularly replaced. And since I didn't know when this was last done, I decided to just go ahead and replace it with a new one. Alright, so I am just about done with this bilge pump project. I'm pretty much happy with the whole setup now, with one exception. And that's the fact that once I completely finished everything that I've done so far and went to test the electric bilge pump, it wasn't able to prime itself. Now this is a rubber impeller pump, so it doesn't pull very well. It pushes a lot better, especially when there's a couple of vertical feet between the pump and the lowest point that the pump is pulling the water from. And so I've actually decided to just replace that pump with the Whale Gulper 320. And this is an electric diaphragm pump. This is gonna push less water, but is more robust. It's less fragile. What I really want it to do is to pump out the small amount of water that can every now and then make its way into the bilge. And I want it to do it reliably, whether or not I'm on the boat. At some date later in the future, I'm going to get an emergency bilge pump, which is gonna be designed to get rid of large amounts of water really, really quickly. But for now, this is all we need for our day-to-day use. Okay, well, everything's installed, so let's pump some water in the bilge and see if it works. Okay. Making a noise, that's good. Oh God. I don't know what's going on, but we got leaks in this hose. Maybe the old pump just didn't produce enough pressure for the water to actually leak, and this one produces a lot more pressure. I guess tomorrow I'll have to buy some new hose and replace the hose. Okay, I sincerely hope that this is the last thing I need to do for this whole bilge pump restoration project. Okay, gonna need to pick up another one of these.
Good.
Okay, that's it. So let's go test this bad boy out and just please God let this be over. Okay, the thing's pumping, the automatic switch is working, there's no leaks. Oh, I'm gonna call that done, finally.